Hello and welcome to AI Playbook with 33A. Today I have Michiel with me for our first episode.
Hi,
Michiel
thank
is
you.
an AI consultant. He facilitates AI design sprints and also does trainings on how to facilitate the workshop. So welcome, Michiel.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you.
I would like to start with your story and what led you to this AI path.
Yeah, I can give you a very brief, well, a little bit of background so that people know where I'm coming from and why I'm interested in AI. So I used to be a software developer when I graduated, just a regular one, nothing to do with AI, just plain not old .NET software developer. I was always interested a little bit in the business side as well. So after some years, I decided to switch from developing software to doing the business and functional analysis part. So basically bridging the gap between the business people and the software developers. And for me, that made a lot of sense because I knew what the software developers needed to do a good job. I liked to talk with business people and understand what their needs were. So it was a good fit. And after a while, I started thinking, okay, what's maybe the next step for me in my career? And so I was looking, trying to find something that made sense. And in the end, I ended up with facilitating workshops just in general. And it was super interesting for me because I didn't like to do the in detail analysis work so much anymore, but I still loved to solve problems. And if you're facilitating a workshop, you're actually helping people solve problems. You're doing it together with them. You're not doing it all by yourself. So that made a lot of sense to me. But of course, yeah, facilitating workshops is super broad. You can do a lot of them. So I first got hooked with the design sprint, the regular one, so not the AI design sprint by 33A. And the reason why the design sprint was so interesting for me was because it solved a lot of challenges that I had in different roles that I had previously. So as a software developer, I never liked throwing away code because the requirements changed. As an analyst, it was sometimes difficult to align people towards the same goal. And then I've also been a scrum master, which is like some kind of servant leader of a team. And there it was difficult to help the team really innovate. And if you look at the design sprint, it actually solves all of those issues. And I was like, okay, this is really nice. I really have to dive into this a little bit more. And so I started learning about workshops, the design sprint. I started to do a few of them. The results were amazing, so I was immediately hooked. And then after a while, it's basically my partner in crime when it comes to AI sessions, the AI bootcamps that we did for 33 as well. And he was coming to an event that I was organizing. And the first time he reached out, we talked a little bit, just some regular chit chat. And there was some, let's call it chemistry. There was a click. And we started talking some more. And suddenly, out of the blue, York reached out and he said, "Hey, I found this AI workshop, which is super interesting. It's basically a way to help business people understand what AI is capable of." And I was still trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do exactly with the workshops? Which direction do I want to go? And AI is a super interesting topic. And the way that Jörg described it, I was immediately hooked. He did the bootcamp first. He was super excited already before the bootcamp, even more excited after the bootcamp, after he knew what AI design sprint was exactly. And not long after him, I decided to also take the bootcamp. And ever since, I've been as excited as him to spread the news or spread the word about AI design sprint. And that's basically how I rolled into, let's say, the AI game or the AI hype, we can call it from time to time.
Yeah. So now that you've been for a bit in this world, what are your thoughts on using AI in business to improve processes and products?
Yeah. I do have to say, so I mentioned it a little bit before, the hype of AI. I think from time to time it's a little bit overhyped. And at the moment, people are looking to solve everything with AI. AI has become the tool that is going to solve all the problems of humanity, it seems. And so that's why I think it's a little bit overhyped. And the reason I say it, I do strongly believe in the potential of AI, but I do think that a lot of companies can already get a lot of benefit when they just start digitalizing processes, then automating processes, and as a third step, start to introduce AI. So I do think there's a lot of margin for improvement in processes before using AI, but I do think that it's going to, well, change a lot of flows, make the lives of a lot of people easier, removing annoying, repeating tasks that are now maybe leading people to burnout because they don't get a lot of energy back from those tasks. And I do think that those are the kind of tasks that we have to solve first using AI. I think there is this really nice quote that's been going around on the internet from someone saying, "I want AI to do," I don't know how she said it, but to do my basically administrative work, not my my painting or my artistic work, and not the other way around. Because currently with generative AI, you can generate a lot of things, and people are a little bit afraid that they will lose their creativity. And the quote is not exact, but I can't agree more that we need to make sure that people start using AI to get rid of pain points as fast as possible, to tackle the annoying task first, so that we can do what we love most and be creative in any way that's possible.
Yeah. Are you saying that in a business context, it's better to have the automations first and then implement AI? That it's not a good idea to implement AI before there are the other systems in place, or how did you mean
Well,
that?
yeah, I think it's not necessarily the right order, or it's not necessarily a sequence. So first automation, then AI. I think it depends on the use case. Like if you know exactly the input and the output that you need to get, then probably it's better to automate something, because then there is less risk of AI recognizing patterns that shouldn't be there, and just giving you a bad output. So I would say if the rules are super clear, I would always advise people to automate something, because then you're sure if you have a certain input that you will get the right output. With AI, there's still he recognizes patterns, and sometimes in the data that you provided, there's patterns that you don't really want it to recognize, or that are just there because of bad testing data, etc. So not saying you need to automate everything first before using AI, but I think it depends on the use case when you should, pick the right tool, basically.
What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you got into this methodology, when you started doing these workshops?
When I started, there is two big challenges that I faced when getting familiar with the AI design sprint. And the first one is, it's a lot. It's If you first go through the bootcamp, you're super excited. You've learned so many new things, so many new components that you can start to use. But at the same time, it can be super overwhelming. And I found that the best way to actually learn it, or to make sure that you really understand everything that needs to happen, is to actually prepare one. So if you start preparing for a workshop, you go over all the exercises again, all the different steps, and then you really have to make sure that you know what's going on, because you as a facilitator have to explain it to the participants. So you have to understand what's happening, and why it's happening. So that was for me in the beginning the most challenging thing. So going from the bootcamp towards the very first AI design sprint that I've run myself, there, of course, it's super nice that if you can just contact people. For example, Jörg did the bootcamp before me, so we were able to talk a little bit about things that I didn't really understand, or I was asking, okay, but why do we do this exactly this way? And I think that's also a little bit why we have the community now at 33A, is to help people get over that first hurdle of, okay, we have all this theory. Now let's put it into a workshop, run the workshop yourself, and to help them figure out all the questions that they might have. So that's the first big thing, first big challenge. And then the second challenge is, I've already said it, so it's a lot. You have different modules. You have the opportunity mapping, the process and automation. You have the products and services part. So you have the three different workshops. And I would have to say, also because I have experience in facilitating other workshops, facilitating design sprints, I personally would do things a little bit differently in the flow of the AI design sprint or in the different workshops. But that's also the nice thing is Mike. So Mike, for the people that don't know him, the founder of 33A, the creator of the AI design sprint, he's also super open about it. He says, yeah, take the things that work for you, adapt it a little bit so it makes sense for your client or for your context. And the nice thing about Mike is also he really asks for the feedback. So he says, yeah, if there's things that we can do maybe in another way or a better way, feel free to give that feedback so we can improve the process. And so that's something for me that is nice, that I can also tweak the process so that I feel comfortable explaining it to people and maybe removing some things that I think, okay, for this team, this is not really relevant, and maybe adding some things that are more relevant. So I think those are the two big things. It's getting familiar for the first workshop is a big challenge, and then tweaking it a little bit so that you feel 100% comfortable.
Yeah, it's definitely it's simple, but still it's a lot.
Yeah, once you get the hang of the different, it's always the same way of working that's coming back in all the workshops. But still, you have, if it's the first time, yeah, you have to put in some work to really understand it. The only tip I can give is people is maybe if you do your first one internally for a team that you already know, really prepare the workshop. And I think that's the best way to get started, because then you really have to think about all the different steps. And yeah, I would really recommend that one to everyone.
What challenges have you seen your clients having with the AI design sprint?
The biggest challenge, well, and then it's a little bit a challenge that's on my side as well, is explaining exactly, because the AI design sprint is doing a lot of things at the same time. It's basically helping people figure out their AI strategy, where they should focus on, what are the AI opportunities in their business. It looks at the ethics part. And for me, sometimes that's the difficult thing to explain, because sometimes people, if you start a workshop, they still think, okay, this is going to be a super theoretical thing. He's going to explain me how AI works. I'm going to sit here and listen. But while in fact, it's super hands-on, it's going to be super specific for their business. Sometimes, yeah, they're used of other kind of workshops or other AI sessions where it's just super general. And sometimes it's hard to explain that this is going to be really specific for their context. But after this, it's people are always super excited that it was so practical, so hands-on, super specific for them. So that's one thing. Another thing, I think it's the ideal tool for management teams. And the reason for this is a lot of management teams I've noticed while running these workshops, less than 10% often have used AI themselves. They've heard about it, they know it's there, but they don't really have any practical experience with it. And the reality is that a lot of people, a lot of employees from their companies are already using AI on the floor. They're using ChatGPT, using Copilot, maybe even other tools that are out there. And for the managers, it's difficult to start creating an AI strategy if they don't know what AI is, what AI can do. And that's the great thing about the AI design sprint, is that it gives people a really clear vision. Okay, these are the different categories inside of AI, the different things that AI is capable of. And it creates awareness and gives them a plan where to start. And I think that's the nice thing, and sometimes still a tricky thing with people in general when it comes to AI. I'm always surprised that a lot of people haven't used ChatGPT, for example. It's out there already for 3 years now. You can create a free account. I think it takes 2 minutes to sign up. It's super intuitive. You just ask it a question, it replies, but still a lot of people haven't taken the step. And I do think when it comes to AI, more important to get started. Also, just with AI strategy, for example, it's more important to get started than being right from the start, because AI is evolving so quick that your strategy will also have to adapt over time without sounding like an ad for the AI design sprint or a commercial. But I do think that the AI design sprint is a really good tool for this, because it really gives people a basic understanding. Okay, this is what AI can do. Here are the opportunities inside of the company. Here is the ethics part that we have to look at. And now you as a management team, or just inside of the specific department, you can start to look at, okay, where are we going to start? How do we want to tackle this? And then there is, of course, a whole piece of work that still has to be done inside of the company, looking into the AI EU Act, GDPR, security. How are we going to look into creating maybe an approved list of tools, AI tools that people can use and can't use? So those kind of things that will take some more time and some more effort, of course.
What do you think is the reason that so many people haven't tried AI?
That is a really good question. Well, if you look at it from, let's say, a theoretical point of view, I don't know what it's called, but you have this like bell curve where it says also, for example, if the new iPhone came out, there is like, 5% of people that immediately need to have the iPhone. So the early adopters, then you have people that are interested, and if they see that the iPhone works, they will start using it. But then there's also a whole bunch of people that will only get the iPhone once their flip phone is no longer being sold in the store. So I think that it's the same for AI. You see, of course, in the numbers, for example, from ChatGPT, I think it's the fastest, it's a tool that's reached 1 billion users, the fastest in history, and a lot faster than other tools have done so. So I do think a lot of people have already experimented with it, but still not enough. And I think the main reason why people might be afraid of AI is because it's often seen as something technical. Of course, it's a part of computer science. Often they talk about large language models, deep learning, machine learning, those kind of things. And I think that scares people from time to time if they hear these terms, because they don't know exactly what it means. The nice thing about AI is it's just a tool. For example, also ChatGPT. You don't need to know what a large language model is in detail to be able to use ChatGPT, for example. But of course, it is interesting to know how a large language model works, so that you also know, okay, these are the risks when I start using ChatGPT. So, for example, the answer that it gives me, it's not the exact answer. It's a prediction based on word patterns, etc. So it helps to know how AI, or the technical side from AI, but it's not necessary. And I do think that it scares a lot of people away, because there's some technical jargon around it.
Do you have any cool use cases, case studies, companies you've worked with and they've made AI solutions that worked well?
So there's this AI design sprint that I did for a management team. It was a team, they had less than 10% or 10%, around 10% of people already using AI. And that's a nice thing, that you can see that doing a workshop creates awareness. Okay, this is what AI is capable of. These are all the opportunities that we see inside of the company. And now I did the workshop, but I'm also doing part of the more, let's say, the strategy part and the implementation part. So we've discovered, or we created a list. I think for the moment it's 20 proof of concepts that are on the list. We've ranked them a little bit on how easy they are to implement for the moment. So there's certain use cases out there that we can do with Microsoft Copilot or GitHub Copilot, or creating a custom Copilot or custom GPT. So that's low-hanging fruit, just to get also the organization to start adopting AI and to start experimenting with it. So that's a use case where I started for a management team even that has no or almost no experience with AI, it can work really well, and they're super excited about it. The thing that I did there is we had a whole day to talk about AI, to find opportunities, to come up with, let's call it a high level strategy. So I did the AI opportunity mapping from the AI design sprint. And there, the last, I think in an hour or so, I called it like an AI adventure or an AI quest that they had to do. So they had to create a company using AI in 45 minutes. And so I asked them to upload an image to ChatGPT, for example. ChatGPT had to say what was on the image. Based on this, they had to ask him to come up with business IDs. They had to pick business IDs, use it for market research to come up with unique selling points, those kind of things. And along the way, people started using AI in the end as well. And there's a few of them that say, yeah, for me, that was a world that opened up, and they are very happy users now of let's say large language models, ChatGPT, Copilot. So that's super interesting. And then so I've done that one, which is for a really big company, but I've also done a session. It was also the AI opportunity mapping session for a very small company. It was only 7 people inside of the company doing multiple tasks, multiple jobs, basically. And there so the whole company was there because there was only 7 of them. But there they also saw, okay, these are the ways that AI can help us. And there again, a little bit similar to what I said in the beginning of the podcast, the conclusion was, okay, AI is nice, but there is already a lot of benefits if we just start digitalizing and automating certain processes. And for a small company, or for their case, it made a lot more sense to invest first in those kind of improvements and not in AI directly. But I also think that's the nice thing from this workshop as well, that you're trying to solve everything with AI, but in the end, you have to be honest and you have to say to the client, hey, maybe we'll start with one proof of concept that makes sense before launching everything. And maybe we don't do a proof of concept. Maybe we say, hey, okay, let's just digitalize first, so we have a lot more data before diving into AI.
So when you get to the prototype stage, do you see most companies finding existing solutions or having to make their own out of their ideas?
Yeah, I think it depends. Depends on the solution that you came up with. Of course, if you have a bunch of data and you want to, let's say, talk to the data, or the people want to talk to the data, so they don't have to go through everything themselves, you can just use a custom Copilot or a custom GPT for this. But as soon as you want to do some extra things, for example, Jörg had this really nice use case where they did also want to talk to the data, but they were also I'm sorry. You'll have to cut that one. York had this really nice use case where the people of the company, they also wanted to talk to certain data sets. So it was manuals about cars, but the mechanics, they were often hanging underneath cars or their hands were greasy. And so then they wanted to also include that they were just able to talk to the system without them having to type everything in. And so you see, as soon as you want to include multiple capabilities of AI, for example, AI can find information, but also AI can chat and with speech, and AI can chat speech. You'll have to cut that as well.
It's all right.
But as soon as you start to include multiple capabilities of AI, that often you can't use the standard out of the box AI tools anymore. And then you probably have to create your own custom AI tool. But the great thing is, if you know what you want to build, you can at least go and look for tools that might do something or might do 90% of the job that you wanted to do already. And of course, using an existing tool will be a lot cheaper than building it yourself. On the other hand, there is thousands of AI tools out there at this point in time. Probably in, let's say, 3 years, maybe 90% of the tools might not exist anymore. So it might be that you find a tool that's super useful for your use case, but in a few years, you'll have to look for something else because there's just so much out there. So I do think in some use cases, it makes sense to go for a specific tool. If things become more complex, you might have to create your custom AI solution. And then it makes sense to start with a proof of concept. So a very small application, AI application that you're going to create and test. And I'm a big believer of doing proof of concepts. And there's a few reasons for this is because if you do a proof of concept you might already notice that you don't have enough data or data quality is not good enough that you're currently storing inside of the company. And then you already know, okay, before we start thinking about implementing AI, we already have to do a kind of data project first, which means that we might have to clean up the data, we might have to store more data. That's a whole project in itself. And if you do that first, then the quality of the AI system will be better. And that's something that you can figure out using a prototype or proof of concept. And for this, I also think, I don't know, Ellie, if you're familiar with the design sprint itself, the regular one.
Yep.
You are. For the people listening that are not familiar with the design sprint, in a design sprint, you go from an idea or a problem to a tested prototype in about a week, 5 days, 4 days if you do the newer version. But there, the prototype can be just a clickable dummy. So you basically can use a PowerPoint where if you click at certain areas, it opens a certain slide. And it doesn't need a lot of logic behind it. I do think for proof of concepts in AI, that this is not going to work. There you really need to put in some data. You really need to train a small AI system to give you the feedback that you desire, because only this way you're able to determine if you have the right data, if the output is of the quality that you expect. And then, of course, you can do some iterations. So I did a few tests recently with creating a custom GPT, custom Copilot. So what we did there is we created the questions that we wanted to ask. We wrote out the answers ourselves in detail. Hey, this is what it should say, or this is what the response should be with the different, sometimes it's 3 things that he has to say, sometimes it's only 1. But then you ask the question to the Copilot or the custom GPT, and you see if the response that you get is similar as the response that you were looking for. And so the first iteration, we gave it a certain data set. We saw that the response was not complete. It was in the right direction, but not complete. Then we added a whole bunch of other data that we saw that was missing. Then we saw that the correctness of what it was saying was already a lot better, but it was not yet the whole answer. It was saying maybe 70% of the whole answer. And so this way you can iterate on the proof of concept to see, okay, if we give it the right amount of data, is it able to provide us with the answers that we want? So that's a super specific thing. And it's also something I think that's happening in a lot of companies now with these chatbots, which are super easy to train. And then, of course, it's a little bit the question also. I see for the moment that there's still quite some difference in the responses that you get from Microsoft Copilot compared to the responses that you get from Custom GPT, for example. Even though they're trained on the same data, of course, behind it's different models that are being used. So that's also something that you can do in this kind of proof of concept phase, is look at 2 different tools, or you can do 2 different proof of concepts to see which one makes most sense.
The workshop world, I have heard that, you do the workshop and the team is super excited, but then they don't really follow through with the results. Have you seen that happening with the AI design sprint?
The thing is, if you start looking into AI, you see that it can do a lot, but a lot of people also suddenly realize, okay, if I start implementing this, there is a whole bunch of, there's actually change management, there's a whole bunch of awareness creation, education that you have to do inside of the company. So the first phase is easy, saying, hey, these are the opportunities, it's nice, it's fun. But then the real work starts. And I do think that scares a lot of people off, because it's the biggest part of the work is having people change their habits and embrace AI. What I've also seen is people started to use AI tools, But then after a while, so for example, they introduce Microsoft Copilot. After a while, they started using it to do some things in Excel. But after a while, they just went back to regularly using Excel, maybe because they hadn't had enough training to know how to use Copilot properly. If people are stressed, they tend to go back to something they already know. And so they avoid new things. So if there's a lot of stress at work, they prefer to do it just by themselves, how they've always done it. I think that's the challenge. If you want to learn any skill, I think they say you need about 20 hours of practice before you, I would not say master it, but at least you own the skill and you're fluent in it. And I think that's the same for using AI or AI tools. You would probably need to give people a lot of education, make sure that they use it for at least 20 hours. And once they've used it for 20 hours, they know what it can do, how to use it, and they will use it more easily and they won't go back to their old tools anymore. But I think that's the tricky part is indeed the whole change management, the creating also change culture, because AI is evolving so fast, tools are evolving so fast. People need to be able to adapt to that speed of change as well. It's not going to be, sorry for the people who are listening who thought it was going to be easy. I don't think it's easy introducing AI into a company. I do think you need to plan for it carefully and don't just drop an AI tool in the laps of a bunch of people, because if you do that, then you'll see that after a while, people will stop using it altogether.
Yep. Yeah. Looking back, is there anything you would do differently in the adoption process with companies?
No, not well. I do think so. I said it before, getting started is more important than being right. So I come from a background of IT. So we use Scrum, Agile. So we are used to iterating on a process. So we try something, we look at what works, at what doesn't work, and then we try to improve the system a little bit. So the next time that we do something, it works a little bit better. And I do think that's the same way that you have to do with AI and rolling out AI inside of the company. Of course, you need to think about a clear strategy. You know that there is some things that you'll have to tackle, education of the tool, spreading awareness about AI, also thinking about the risks that you have to explain to people. So there's a bunch of things that you can already prepare in advance, but then you have to, in my opinion, you just have to start, see what the response is, and then adapt from there. I think that's the best way to do it. Because if you want to make something upfront that is perfect, then I think they call it paralysis by analysis. So you're just stuck in analyzing things. You keep coming up. Yeah, you keep coming up with new challenges, new problems that you have to face for which you don't have an answer yet. And yeah, nothing happens in that case. So it's better to just start small. That's the thing. You have to start, but start small. Don't roll out 20 AI tools at once inside of the company. Just start with one tool, see how that goes, learn from the mistakes, and then do it better the next time.
What feedback have you gotten from your clients that did the AI design sprint?
Yeah, I have to say it's only been people that are super excited. It's similar. So the people that have done the workshop, they said, okay, we're super excited that it's so hands-on, it's practical, it's about our specific business context. They also like that they learn what AI is doing or what AI is capable of. So they are able to think about new AI opportunities maybe while they're doing their work. So even after the workshop, it has a lasting effect. So I think that's the feedback I get most. People are super excited. And then, of course, it's what you said before is then, of course, you have to guide them a little bit to do the work to create maybe proof of concept. So you can guide them as a facilitator in that as well. And maybe also do part of the change management. But I've also seen it. So together with York, we did a few boot camps for 33A as well. And you see the same excitement in the people that learn the AI design sprint to, well, consultants that are going to do it in other companies. They are also super excited once they've finished the bootcamp because they see that there's a lot of opportunities. And then depending on the specific department or specific industry that you're working in, most people say, oh yeah, if I change this or if I take this part of the AI design sprint, then it will really create a lot of value for my clients. And I think that's the main thing. Creating value, it creates a lot of value in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, do you see like what percentage of companies know how they want to use AI at company level, or are they department level or team? How is that?
Well, I don't have any statistics on this,
The
but I
feeling.
can. That feeling. My feeling is that for the moment, a lot of companies are, which is a good thing. I would say, they're winging it. They're trying to start somewhere. But I think because AI is capable of doing so much, there are so many tools out there that a lot of people they don't know where to start properly. And that's a good thing that you have this kind of workshop, which is structured, which provides you with a good baseline to start implementing an AI strategy. But it's very difficult to say how many people are already doing this properly, already have a proper AI strategy. I think it depends also on the size. For smaller companies, I would say it's not the highest priority yet. Bigger companies, they often don't want to miss out on the opportunities, or they don't want to get left behind. There's some kind of FOMO, fear of missing out on the AI hype. And that's something that you also see, like if you see the numbers that are being thrown around left and right, that 70% of the managers, they want to start doing something with AI. So there is a lot of attention for it. But wanting to do something with AI and knowing how to start, for me, are two different things.
I guess I'm more thinking like if you are a consultant and you're reaching out to companies, who would you suggest that reach out first? Like, is it at a team level, or company like higher?
That's a really good question, because I'm still looking into that myself. What's the best entry point as someone who's running these workshops? At one point, I would say it also depends. So let's say that you want to focus on AI workshops, or you tweak it specifically for the HR department. Then of course it makes sense to target HR managers to see how they can automate their processes or improve their processes. So then the entry point is really clear. But of course you can also aim for senior management. So the C-level suite, where they say, hey, AI is a priority for us. We don't know how to get started. We don't have the in-house knowledge to get started. So we need some external guidance to take the first steps. But I also think it's a little bit how you position yourself. And to be totally honest, for the moment, I'm rethinking how I want to position myself with the AI design sprint specifically. Do I want to create something, so maybe tweak the AI design sprint a little bit and create something super specific for one industry or for a specific department? And then, of course, the entry points will be different. But the good thing is that with the AI design sprint, you can have a lot of different entry points, because you can do it on management level, you can do it inside of a team. So you can target an HR manager, for example, but you can also target HR people. If you say, for example, hey, HR people, are you fed up of doing the same repetitive task over and over again? If so, maybe we can have a look how AI can help you solve this pain point. And so then you would target the HR people, and they would probably sell it internally to their manager to actually run a workshop. So I think it's depending how you approach it, how you want to position yourself inside of the market.
Yeah, true. And how about if you compare AI for products and processes? How is it on that front?
So I've done most of the workshops in the on the process side, also because my background as a functional and business analyst is more about improving processes and often digitizing processes. So that's where I'm more comfortable. But I think there's definitely need out there to improve a lot of processes, not only with AI, but just have a really good look at the process. Okay, can we make this smoother? And once you have the ideal process, then have a look to include AI and not just take an existing, let's call it garbage process and just put AI on top of it, because that will not solve a lot of your problems. It might even make them worse if you are doing with the speed of AI, just creating more garbage. So that's one thing. But I do think it's super exciting to see how you can include AI in existing products and services, because it opens new doors for companies to help their clients to have a better customer experience. Or, for example, if you have an app and you put AI in it. But I have to make this kind of, let's say, side note. For the moment, everyone is saying in their app how it's powered by AI. I have AI to make smart decisions in this or this. So I do think that a lot of people are just now using AI because it's a buzzword to sell their product more. While maybe behind the screens, it's not really using AI. Maybe it's just a logical tree that's being followed. So yeah, I do think if you do it properly, it can create a lot of benefits for the people using your product or using your service. But I do think let's say, as a society, we have to be aware that a lot of people are just saying they use AI because it sells better. And I think that's something that we'll see for the foreseeable future, and it will not go away super fast.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any other advice you would give to professionals or organizations that are considering adopting 33?
I would definitely say, so if you're still, of course, any workshop that you do with an external party, or any, let's say, boot camp that you do to get familiar with the framework of 33A is an investment, both of time and money. I would definitely say go to an experience session first. So 33A, I know you guys are doing them from time to time. I think it's just a €5 commitment fee or something to make sure people show up, because you cannot do them in a very big group. It's a limited group, which makes the experience better. But if you really want to feel what the AI design sprint is about, I would say go to an experience session. There you get hands-on experience, how it works. And you will probably see that it's super easy, even without having any technical background, without having any AI background, that from both sides, both as a participant in the workshop, you're able to come up with valuable AI concepts and AI solutions for your problems. But also as a facilitator, as a consultant, you see that with all the materials that you have at your disposal, all the categories that are being created by 33A, and also the specific capabilities inside of the categories, that as a facilitator, it's quite easy to help companies figure out how to implement AI, or at least what direction to go. So I would definitely say my advice would be experience it, go to an experience session, and I think you can find them on the website. So yeah.
Yes, it is on the website. Last question I wanted to ask you about the community, 33A's community. How is that? Have you seen that community helping the consultants that are part of it and professionals? How is it?
So I have to say, so I'm part of the community, or building the community a little bit. Building a community is not an easy thing, because people will only come back if there is enough value, if their questions are answered soon enough. So let's say the asynchronous part of people posting and answering question, we can improve there. But I do think that the biggest value people currently get from the community are community calls. For the moment, we have a monthly community call. People who are interested show up. And then from 33A side, so Mike is showing up most of the time. Then Jörg, me, maybe you as well, Ali, in the future will show up. And the goal is to help people there with their questions. So maybe there's people that's starting to implement it, or are preparing to do their first AI design sprint. They might have some additional questions. They can just show up for the call, ask the questions, get feedback from our side, so at 33A, but they can also get feedback from other participants, participants from the community call, which are people that have also done the AI design sprint bootcamp. And I think that that's where the value lies, is that you can exchange ideas with Mike, who created the AI design sprint, but also with just people who have done a bunch of AI design sprints that have different opinions, different experiences. And you see that every time someone asks a question, often their question is answered and they are happy that they can, well, work on their solution or start to implement whatever was said. But also for people inside of the community call, often, even if you don't have a question yourself, often you can take things with you. They say, oh, I never thought about it. Sometimes it also talks about what you were asking before, Ellie, like positioning, marketing, sales, how people are approaching this. And maybe you don't have a question about marketing and sales at this point in time, but by hearing someone else's question and hearing the responses on that, it can trigger you to say, hey, maybe I should implement something like this. Or maybe I should indeed ask testimonials at the end of my workshop to put on my website, for example. And those are things that are being discussed there. And the nice thing is every time the community call is totally different, because new people show up, or regular people show up, but there's new questions. And so every time you learn something new. So I would definitely recommend anyone who has done the AI Design Sprint Bootcamp to come to the community calls, because they're super, super interesting.
Is there anything else you would like to add? That something that we missed?
I think it was quite good questions. Good. No, I can't really think of something that we really missed at this point in time.
Right. Thank you so much, Michiel.
Nice.
It was a great
You're
conversation.
welcome. Thank you
See
so much
you.
for having me, Ellie, and hope to see you around. Bye-bye.